Hello and welcome to the oddschecker betting show sponsored by Unibet. This is your Punchestown Festival Day 3 preview. I'm your host, George Elek. I was joined for Day 1 and Day 2 by Ed Quigley, but this time I'm joined by Johnny Ward as we look ahead to the Thursday at Punchestown Festival. Johnny, there's been a fair bit, I asked Ed this as well, there's been a fair bit of chat around on social media, especially from quite a prominent Irish racing parody Twitter account. Around the quality of the Punchestown Festival, and especially given the behemoth that is now the Cheltenham Festival, and given that it comes after Aintree as well, and the Willie Mullins procession that it can often turn out to be. What are your thoughts on this 5-day racing festival that kind of marks the end of the National Hunt season?
You said that it marks the end of the National Hunt season, George. I think that's a very, very key point. It's horses are generally not trained for Punchestown; they're trained for Cheltenham. Interesting reading Patrick Mullins in the Irish Independent today, where he spoke about his father essentially seeding the first couple of months of the season, the first proper months, October, November. Really, it'll be very, very quiet for Willie Mullins, but he essentially works Leopardstown, Dublin Racing Festival, Cheltenham, Punchestown, and he didn't have much of an artillery at Aintree, such that Gordon Elliott decided, well, tactically I should go to Aintree here, and he did well at Aintree, had a couple of big winners. So Cheltenham is pretty much still everything, but you do work around that. And to be honest now, George, I was kind of despondent about Punchestown going in to the festival this year, until I saw the declarations on Sunday for Tuesday, Monday for Wednesday, and today for Thursday. We're recording this Tuesday ahead of Oxford's big battle against Cheltenham, which you'll be wrapped up in.
That is a big one.
Yeah, I think you'll be, regardless of what happens when you listen to this or watch this, you'll still be in relegation Pearl. But I think the first 3 days, I think the decks are great, to be honest. I mean, the Stayers Hurdle is a cracking race, and as much as we knew Willie Mullins was going to dominate the others, we've Braveman's Game.
Did not mean that to happen.
There you go. That's karma for you bringing up the game tonight.
There we go.
I'm trying not to think about it.
We've Braveman's Game coming over, and in fairness, the fields are very, very competitive, and the Grade 1s are actually quite interesting. Even the races with Willie Mullins having a hot favourite, I think actually there are some interesting angles in them. So the first 3 days, the declarations I think have been excellent. We've a couple of quite a good few number of English challengers, British challengers on day 3, and all told, I'm actually delighted with the deck so far. And the one thing, you probably haven't been to Punchestown, George, it's a lot more kind of relaxed than Cheltenham, and trainers will admit to that. It's not Cheltenham. The pressure's off after Cheltenham. It means a lot. It's not Cheltenham. It's more of a fun time of year as to end the National Hunt season.
Yeah, and I certainly agree. As a racing fan, I think it doesn't entice me or excite me as much as a betting contest necessarily as Cheltenham, but I do think the intrigue is certainly there, and we're going to see some cracking matchups over the course of the week. But Unibet, our sponsors here, do have an offer for new customers, a welcome offer, money back up to £40 if your first racing bet loses, plus a £10 casino bonus. If you follow the link at the bottom in the description of this, you can click on that and follow that through. And loads of good offers for us as well, including extra place races available with Unibet across certain races on the card. The 3:40, the first race on the day here, the 4:15, the 6 o'clock, and the 7:10 on Thursday, all getting an extra place. We're recording this just after 3 o'clock on the Tuesday, so just before racing gets underway. In terms of the going, where are we in terms of the weather and how it's going to be in the first couple of days at the festival, Johnny?
Yeah, the weather is obviously insane, as we know. I think it hit -5 somewhere in Ireland last night.
Jesus.
Yeah, which is just completely bonkers. So it was quite cold this morning as I would go. Wasn't as cold in the Dublin region, but we had this snow snap. This cold snap. We've had kind of a northerly breeze the last while, so it's yielding to soft. We had one of the driest Februaries on record in Ireland. Then we had, I think, the wettest March on record. And the March was, I mean, this is obviously alarming, but the March was badly needed for the ground. And just even up at Jessica Harrington's last week, she was talking about how quickly it was drying out. I was at Kilbeggan last week, and it actually looked like a summer track. But Punchestown will be very lucky that they've gotten this rain. We're yielding to soft. It looks like it's going to dry out a bit throughout the week, but it'll be beautiful, beautiful ground because we've had such a wet March, they haven't really needed to be heavy on the water or anything like that. So I do kind of want to see, I know we're recording this at 3 on Tuesday, I do want to see to an extent on Tuesday what it rides like and what the jockeys are saying, because that would, it's key to some of my selections. I would have some ground concerns for a couple of them, but it's going to be really, really nice ground. Not summer ground, but not proper winter ground either, exactly as it should be for Punchestown.
Excellent stuff. We don't have prices for the races. As I say, we're recording this fairly soon after final decks, and that includes the 340. So, Johnny, what I'll do is we'll whistle past the ones without prices unless there's anything you want to highlight, and that includes the first. SP only as it is now, but as I say, that extra place, Unibet paying a fifth to 5. Anything in that first, or should we move on to the second?
Yeah, I actually do like a horse in the first race. You know, as we know, these are extremely competitive races. A lot of these coming in with a good chance. I'm going to go with Golf Marin. To be honest, I thought this horse was getting a bit frustrating. He was quite well fancied in several races, and just looking at his chase form, which is something I'll mention later on as well. He was beaten 15 lengths at Tramore after travelling like the winner. Then at Fairyhouse, again, he travelled well, was beaten 25 lengths, particularly disappointing behind Whiskey Will for a second time with Clonmel. But he went back over hurdles the last day, George, and he won really, really well. And he's been brought up to a mark of 116, but he's only £7 higher. And what I just liked was he finished his race really strongly. Now, Striking, who was second, won easily on the flat since. Dam Rapide, who was fourth. By the time you watch this, Dam Rapide will have run the first of Punchestown the Tuesday. Hopefully she's a big price, but hopefully she's run okay. But I actually do like Golf Marin. I think Tony Martin's really turned a corner with his horses. He travels really, really well in his races, this horse. And that was the first time I thought he actually really finished out his races. Mark Walsh is riding him, so I do like him. He should be 8-10 to 1.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, keep an eye on Golf Marin in the first there for Johnny. Have got some prices, market prices in the second, keeping out the Unibet, see what they are. Again, extra place here, a fifth to 4. Dino Blue, the favourite, at 6 to 4 in this handicap chase over 2 miles. Grange Walk 9 to 2. Douglas Talking, who travelled beautifully at Aintree and just touched off. Lucinda Russell and Derek Fox 8 to 1. Call Me Lyrene 8 to 1. Cursor Bleem 8 to 1. 9 to 1. Brandy Harbour. Hollow Games 11 to 1, 14 to 1 bar those, Johnny.
Yeah, the betting on this is absolutely bonkers, I think, just looking at the early betting. Dino Blue, I know that Andy Holding was all over Dino Blue for Cheltenham. I do wonder about this mare. I think she can be a little bit of a bridle horse. At Cheltenham, she finished a bad second, but you know, she was lucky to finish really in the first 2 on that occasion, because there was late drama in the race, and I thought she wasn't making any impression. Then we had a similar story at Fairyhouse the last day when she ends up winning by 9.5 lengths. But for me, she was very lucky because Whiskey Wealth fell at the last. Whiskey Wealth was sent off 11 to 2, and in my book, Whiskey Wealth was matched in running on the exchanges at something like 4s on. In my view, he was going to win. It was slightly in the balance. This was after Whiskey Wealth not only, like, he lost ground at the second last, kind of knuckled on landing, and then he was sort of steadying into the last and ended up falling. But he's a horse that hasn't been with Terence O'Brien very long. Terence O'Brien has a good record with his chasers, and he's gone up to 127 from 124. Dino Blue's gone up £7. There's actually a £4 difference, despite the fact I don't think Dino Blue would have beaten him the last day, and I think a lot of people will agree with me on that. She's something like, she's going to be a hot favourite, and I'm just looking at, with one bookmaker here, Whiskey Wealth is 14 to 1 at the moment. Absolutely crazy discrepancy in price, in my view. Mike O'Connor claiming 5. The last couple of times, probably the only couple of times he's ridden this horse, he won. He beat Golf Marin at Tramore. Hopefully Golf Marin will have run well in the first race, but I really do like this horse. He just might want the ground to dry out too much, but other than that, I can't see this price discrepancy making any sense.
Yeah, 14 to 1 early prices. Do check out Unibet to see what they come out at for Whiskey Wealth, and maybe the Elite Trade double. Those two, their form lines entwined there for the first 2 selections for Johnny on the card, which should be a big price. But as I say, an extra place there as well in the second. No prices in the third as it stands in the cross country here, Johnny. Any view at this stage?
This would not be for me now. This is one of the races. It's a nice spectacle if you're at Punchestown, and it is actually quite cool to watch it. There are a lot of these races at Punchestown. They're not for everyone, and people can it's nice to be able to actually go up and go around the course, and you can go up quite close to the horses on the infield. And it's a great spectacle, and it's kind of like almost like a bridge between bets on races. So if you're at the track, you're going to have a bet, but yeah, this would not be for me.
The good news, though, for those who do want to have a bet, is that Unibet are boosting the price of the favourite in 3 races on Thursday, and one of them is the 450. So if you go onto the Unibet site from 3:30 on the day of racing, you'll find the price boosted of the favourite in that 450. And also in the next race, the 525, where we absolutely do have prices. This is, of course, the Champion Stayers Hurdle, where Tiapu is the 9-4 favourite ahead of Classical Dream at 4-1. Monkfish 9-2 here, Side of Burley 5-1. Asterion Forlange 15-2, Ashdale Bob 12-1, Somerville Boy 12-1. I mean, you've got a big price on Monkfish being 9-2 in the Irish Champion Stayers Hurdle a couple of years ago. What do you make of the way this market is taking shape? As you say, no shortage of quality here, especially Side of Burley, the returning favourite the returning hero after a couple of unbelievable runs this side of the Irish Sea.
I think this is one of the toughest grade ones to have a bet on throughout the week, as much as at least you have sort of a race that doesn't involve a sharp price favourite. But this is an incredibly good renewal. Classical Dream has won the last 2 editions of this. I think he's very vulnerable here because of the depth. You've Asterion Forlange, obviously, renewal rivalry with his stablemate Monkfish, who I thought ran an absolute blinder on his return. We hadn't seen him since he bombed out at this festival 2 years ago. Remember when he was going to win the Gold Cup at that stage? He was going to win the Gold Cup in 2022. Obviously hasn't been seen since. It's a bit of a risk backing him here because, you know, he still needs to step up, and he's staying over hurdles, but you could easily make a case for him. Sardu Burley, I know Gordelli said he's good for a couple of good runs in the season, but he's put them back to back now. I mean, that was an amazing achievement. He's bidding to make history here to win this race as well. Add that to the Cheltenham and the Aintree performance, and I wouldn't be ruling him out of my pearl. I think he's developed a bit of consistency. Somerville Boy, obviously, what a horse he was in his day. I'm going to go with Tiapu. I would be a bit concerned, George, just about the ground. Tiapu flopped at this festival last year. Now maybe it was like the fact that he was run over 2 miles that just was finding him out. Obviously beat Classical Dream and Honeysuckle on his return, but that was on soft ground. He looked especially effective at Gore, and it was probably his best performance on the Galmoy when he beat Somerville Boy on soft to heavy. I actually think watching back at Cheltenham, I don't think Davy Russell was actually at his best at all at Cheltenham. I think he'll probably admit that himself. Didn't really look comfortable on the horse. Now, I'm not saying he would have won, but he was only beaten 3 parts for length. And I think with another ride, he actually would have won on the day. He's still a really good, young, promising 6-year-old stayer who's kind of more upside than a lot of these. But I probably would want 11-4, 3-1 to back him. Because there is that slight proviso. If the ground drying out, his best form is simply on soft ground. But I think if he sort of gets away with yielding to soft, he'll go very, very close.
So yeah, maybe one to swerve at 9-4, but keep an eye on those markets. And if we do see a bit of a drift for Tiapu, would be Johnny's Selection. This 6 o'clock now, the handicap hurdle here, and a horse that I backed to win the Supreme before we'd seen him run for Willie Mullins. Tops the market here over nearly 3 miles, which is a bit of a shame. Parmenion is the 5-1. That is the market price at the moment. No prices from Unibet. The favourite, Seabank Bistro 6-1. Yeah Man 8-1. Walk on Air 8-1. 12-1. Grosny, Beacon Edge 14s, Sweet Will 14s, Kilbeg King and Sir Argus 14-1 as well. 16-1 bar those. Loads in here. 28 runner race this one. An open affair, Johnny. From these early prices, what do you make of the prices they are now?
Yeah, it's certainly an open affair. Walk in the Park's going to have a big say in this. He's 3 horses in it that are sort of well fancied. Seabank Bistro is definitely interesting. Like, he was quite well fancied in the Albert Bartlett, and he just didn't perform at all on the day. I don't know, they said afterwards that he was suffered early interference. To be fair, then he ran behind Western Walk and Verdon Place at Ferryhouse. That was a better run, and he is still learning how to race. Paul Townend loyal to him. The way they spoke about him after he beat Franciscan Rock, he might be better than a mark of 131. I would have some reservations. I have to say now, I found this race desperately tough. You mentioned the Willie Mullins factor. Parmenion comes in, good run the last day. He would have to prove that he definitely wants this trip. Then further down the bet,
betting. Sir Argus, I was actually at Cork Road the day he won. I thought he was quite good on that occasion, and he's fairly unexposed here, but it's probably a weak enough race. And Grosjean, then you could see this horse being quite well fancied. He'd be my tentative pick in the race. We didn't see him since he was second to Percival Galway. He's only 5-1 that day at Leopardstown. That's very, very solid form. And Charles Burns has probably laid him out for this race with Philip claiming the 5. He's a sort of a tentative pick. It's a very, very tough race, and you're obviously looking for those extra places with Unibet.
Yeah, Grosny 12-1. That extra place, you are getting a 5th to 5. Interesting that Parmenion was on Boxing Day when I thought I was going to see the Supreme winner win at Leopardstown, and it was a bit of a flat performance. But the form has worked pretty well, albeit over 2 miles with high definition, winning that one. And of course, Diverge finishing in 6th. See how Diverge, well, by the time this gets out, people will know how Diverge got on day 1. 3 more races to cover. The final race that we have prices for is the Barberstown Castle Novice Chase over 2 miles, and the return of El Fabiolo, who is unsurprisingly the 130 on favourite. Dysart Dynamo is 5-1, St. Roy 13-2, and Indiana Jones 33-1. I mean, at this stage of the season, you don't want to be predicting processions. We see shocks, but it would be a massive shock to see the favourite not obliged here, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and in fairness to El Fabiolo, I think we have to give him a lot of credit at this stage. I'm not really sure at this stage what Constitution Hill is doing next season, and that's the big proviso. If I own Constitution Hill, I would go over fences, because it's just like, well, why not? But I think he's a chaser, but I probably would stick him that 2 miles. I don't think I'd be trying the Gold Cup trip. In any event, you'd imagine if he does run next season, it will be in the Arkle. So people are in the Champion Chase rather, because they'll probably fast forward him on to senior chasing. And where does El Fabiolo go next season? Is he going to clash with Constitution Hill? Because I'm not sure. I think we have to give him the credit he deserves. Now, in fairness, John Baum was electric at entry, and he routed him at Cheltenham. But the bet for me in this race, and I actually do like this bet quite a lot, is Saint Ra without, if there is a market on it, because for me, Dysart Dynamo should not be second favourite. He's a horse who's he fell behind Constitution Hill, obviously over hurdles. He didn't finish his race at Leopardstown, and he fell again at Cheltenham the last day. And he's so free; he needs everything to go right. I know he's a course winner, but he's going to be probably taken on up front to some extent by Indiana Jones. And I think it's going to leave him very, very tired at the end of his race. Saint Ra will 100% be ridden one way. He's going to be ridden to creep into the race, just as he did at Cheltenham. Had no answer to Fabiolo or John Bunn on that occasion. He'd no answer to Banbridge at Aintree, but to me, he's an out-and-out 2-miler, and he travelled very well again. You are taking a bit of a chance. Willie Mullins turns him out again 2 weeks later, but he's a type of horse you can be fairly confident he's going to run his race. You're going to get something like 6-4 without El Fabiolo. I think that's a great bet.
There you go. Keep an eye out. No prices as of yet on Unibet, but keep your eye out on the site. Come probably Thursday morning, or maybe Wednesday evening, you'll find that there. St. Roy without El Fabiolo, the favourite, and also got a price. You mentioned the champion hurdle there. El Fabiolo currently the 3-1 second favourite behind the Energumene with Unibet for the Cheltenham Champion Chase next year. Constitution Hill 6-1. Again, those prices might change once we see Energumene and how El Fabiolo get on over the course of this week. But Unibet do have the most Cheltenham Festival 2024 markets of any bookie out there, so you can go onto their site and find all of those listed. We've got the Mayor's Handicap Chase and then the bumper to finish here, Johnny. I'll let you know prices on either of those as it stands, so I'll let you take away any fancies you might have.
Yeah, we've 12 runners in the ironically named Close Brothers Mayor's Handicap Chase, and to be fair, a lot of these are coming in good recent form. Just keep an eye out, George, for Danny Gilligan, who rides Broomfield Hall. I like latching onto these jockeys when they're claiming. I think this guy is mustard. He's still claiming 7. I think he's ridden 2 winners so far over jumps and whatever he's ridden. And she has a very good record at Punchestown. The Dempsey team in good form as well, and comes back in class after running a Lister race the last day. I think she's interesting, but I am going to go with Indy Bell here, who's a totally different profile. Just Robert Widger said after she ran at Downpatrick the last day that she probably needs to go right-handed. Her 3 wins have been right-handed, and what's interesting is plenty of pace in this race. She's made the run in the past, but at Downpatrick the last day, she was sort of ridden to kind of pick up the pieces. She really scooted up the hill. She's from Doll, who he opposes, was favoured, well beaten in third. And it actually wasn't the worst race in the world for Downpatrick. And she really jumps well. She's only up to a mark of 107, and she's only a 6-year-old as well. Robert Widger, who a lot of you will remember in his riding career, has done a nice job with this mare. She's very consistent, but to me, she's definitely better over fences. She's a low weight. I think the pace angle in this race, she's going to be able to hack away. And I just think because people probably downgrade the Downpatrick form because of it being sort of a grade 3 track, I think she might be a bigger price than she ought to be here. I actually couldn't believe the price she was at Downpatrick, considering how well she'd been running in hurdle races. She bolted up on that occasion, and I think she'll go well here each way as well.
Indy Bell, the one to keep an eye on there for Johnny. Anything in the last?
Yeah, I like Ballyburn here. This horse is, I actually don't know what happened with him, because he was supposed to go to Cheltenham after he won at Punchestown the last day. He was sent off 7-4, having won his point to point. It was a sort of a slowly run race. Edward O'Grady had a very hot price favourite, Irish Panther, who finished up third on that occasion. Irish Panther prior to that had finished second to Fact to File when he looked all over the winner at Christmas at Leopardstown. And Quantum Storm, Gordon's horse, was well touted in second, and the first 3 of them were well clear. Quantum Storm had won the point to point, but they were well clear anyway. But I think the notable thing about this race, George, is Ballyburn was really, really free. He kind of raced with his head down to the floor, but essentially for a horse who has a stout pedigree by Flemonsforth out of point to point winner and bred to win chases effectively, and that's what he is. For him to be quite keen is a worry in race like that, but when you have the pedigree that he has, when you're running freely over 2 miles, you're probably going to be strong enough to get away with it. He actually finished his race really well, and he was kind of strong at the finish. And if he can drop the bit here, better days ahead. I tipped him up at Cheltenham. I thought he was desperately disappointing. To me, he's a question mark here. If there's a bit of a pace on here, I think he'll take a lot of beating. And Willie obviously has others in the race. This is the choice of Patrick. Ballyburn is a horse to look out for. Keep an eye out for him maybe for the Albert Bartlett maybe next season, something like that. I wouldn't be afraid to have an early play on him. As I say, I don't know why he didn't go to Cheltenham, but I think he'll be very, very well fancied here.
Out of interest, how come the Albert Bartlett, just in terms of, is that just bred for further? I mean, obviously running here over 2 miles.
Yeah, he won his point to point. He's only raced a point to point, and he's a half brother to Manila Daddy, who's a 3.5 miler. Noble Endeavour 3 miler. Planet 9 3 miler, more or less. And the Dam is an unraced half sister to Warden Hill. So that's kind of, I guess, the type of horse that Ronnie Bartlett likes to buy. Now, I mean, Willie would probably have something flashier to go for the sort of Ballymore, and I imagine he might go down that route. But let's win the bumper. Let's win the bumper at Punchestown first.
Yeah, Ballyburn, 16-1 for next year's Albert Bartlett as it stands right now. With Unibet Fact to File, you mentioned a second ago, is the 7-1 favourites. That brings our Punchestown Day 3 preview to a close. Thank you very much to Johnny for sharing his tips and insight. We'll be back for Day 4 and 5, which we're recording, I think, on Thursday at some point. So make sure you subscribe to the Oddschecker YouTube channel so you can find the Oddschecker betting show there. As I say, make sure you click on the link in the description and sign up for a Unibet account so that you can make the most of the welcome offer, which is money back up to £40 if your first racing bet loses, plus a £10 casino bonus. You've also got the extra places, as I mentioned, and the price boosts of the favourite on the day of the racing too. So hopefully a couple of winners in there. Please do enjoy the racing and ensure that you're gambling responsibly.